This position paper includes at least four keywords. The first is some kind of reaffirm of principles that including China respecting the sovereignty of all countries and calling for abandoning some kind of Cold War mentality. And second, I think the keyword is to clarify our goals, which include calling for the ceasefire, to resume peace talks. And thirdly, I think China has drawn our right lines, including reducing so-called strategic risks and keeping nuclear power plants safe. And last but not least, I think China is calling for actions, including resolving those humanitarian crises, protecting civilians, and keeping the implied supply chain stable. Of course, this position paper cannot be treated like so-called peace plan. So I think it's more like a set of preliminary guidelines that could stimulate further discussion. But how about a reaction of Ukraine side or Russian side? I think it's quite difficult for them to accept any kind of peace agreement or peace plan at current stage.
China has worked hard to maintain its relations with both Russia and Ukraine. How much leverage or influence do you think that has allowed Beijing to have on both sides?
Well, I think it should be noticed that China has established a so-called strategic partnership both with Russia and Ukraine. And China has repeatedly stated that it would not to call choosing sides between them, nor does they want to this crisis to be expanded or extended. So I think China seeks so-called balanced role between two countries. In fact, China hopes that the core demands of both sides to be noticed simultaneously.
Okay, and Professor Zhao, what's the significance of the language being used about the threat of chemical and nuclear weapons?
Well, I think one of the bottom line of China towards the Ukraine crisis is we are trying to prevent any kind of so-called nuclear war to be launched. So in terms of that, I think it's quite important to provide our very clear position that we are against any kind of a nuclear war or usage of so-called technical nuclear weapons. So this is maybe one of the significance that China has prepared this position paper and to launch it on the day of so-called 1 year anniversary of this conflict.